Russellville City Council to order. We're going to be led in our invocation by Pastor Howard Kaiser, Crow Mountain Baptist Church, and we'll follow that with a pledge to the flag. Please rise. Father, thank you for the opportunity that we have, the citizens of this fair city, being a part of this assembly. We just ask, Lord, for wisdom on the part of these that are here to serve us. We just ask, Lord, that as each business partner comes, let them think not just of themselves, but also of all the city of those that they represent. Bless their decisions, that you have put them in charge by your divine will. We ask this thing in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Stuber.
Present.
Mr. Holman.
Present.
Mr. Richard Harris.
Here.
Ms. Freddie Harris.
Present.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Mr. Eaton.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Present.
Mr. Westcott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Quorum has been declared. Council, in your packet you received minutes from July 21st and a special called meeting August 9th. If there are no comments or questions, we would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion, Mr. Wiley, and a second, Mr. Westcott. All in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll bring us to the finance report. Mr. McCoyne,
Yes, sir.
fill us in.
Finance report for July. General fund revenues were $1,394,587. That's 2.6% above our year-to-date projection at this point. Sales tax receipts were $800,332. Franchise fees and permits were $489,098. Total expenditures were $916,992. That's 1.3% below our year-to-date projections. Year-to-date, we've received $128,958 more. Street fund operations were $141,845. That's 4.65% above our year-to-date projection for year. The sales tax receipts were $206,222. The half-cent sales tax was $47,677. Street fund expenditures were $147,070. 1.1% below our projections. Sales tax improvements were $396,724. That was for overlay, sidewalk, and the 205 study. There was no capital expenditure. Economic development revenues were $58,747. $53,518 was the news tax. $5,229 was interest. On this interest, they started our new program a month early, so it's going to be adjusted in this month. I caught it when I was doing my reconciliations, and they overpaid us for July. Expenditures were $1,550. That was for a little equipment and mowing the industrial park. Capital assets revenues were $419,144. $412,592 was new sales tax. Again, we got a $6,552 in interest. Expenditures were $675,686 for City Corp, building maintenance, aquatic center, new fire station, and parks. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. McCoyne?
Thank you, Jerry.
I guess you get off light tonight.
Just a note to tell you where we're at with sales tax is our actual sales tax for 7 months, we are $42,665 above the same period time last year.
How
many?
much, Jerry? 42?
$42,665.
Year-to-date compared to?
Year-to-date compared to year-to-date last year. So we're 0.87% increase in sales tax receipts.
Are you smiling? Or you're not smiling?
It's not a good thing, but at least we're ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Better than the alternative, I guess.
Yep.
All right, that'll bring us to my report. Number one, the Planning Commission appointment. We just kind of gave you a heads up the other day. We offered that to the commissioner that needs to get off the Planning Commission, was put on there a few years ago. Basically, that a lot of lenders felt like they needed representation. They do kind of have an interest in planning and development, and so Todd Meimerstorff was happy to serve, but now he's got a lot of irons and a lot of fires, and he asked us to find a replacement and gave us till the end of the year, but he also said the sooner the better. So this week we got confirmation from Karen Yarbrough. She's the branch manager at Bank of the Ozarks on Parkway. I think most of you probably are familiar with her.
I know her personally.
So that's who we're going to nominate, and if it's
I'll
the
make a
pleasure of the
motion.
council.
Make a motion, we appoint her.
I'll second.
Motion and Mr. Wiley and a second from Ms. Harris to appoint Karen Yarbrough to Planning Commission. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We will get her a training packet and get her up to speed pretty quick. Two, I just thought we'd report on the detention center visit. I'd say that took, well, somewhere over an hour. Pretty informative visit. It's a whole different thing. Even though I've been in 2 or 3 times back in the day, I was a vendor for them, and the farther you go in that building, the more you learn about it. I guess it's a necessary evil. We have to have, that's part of doing operations. If you get a chance, those of you that weren't able to make it, if you get a chance, they're happy to take you and tour you around. Of course, it was getting us familiar with it because they eventually, and they're not talking about this year or whatever, but they're going to need to make some improvements. Luckily, they've got, there's 3 or 4 different things about our detention center, or the county's detention center, that would make remodeling or expansion a lot less costly than the numbers we're used to seeing for our big construction. And so it's a thing that's coming and at some point in the future. So if you ever get a chance, make a call out to the detention center, and they're happy to show you around. So,
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment? I
Yes,
took
sir.
that tour with you as well, and one of the things that surprised me, frankly, I was extremely impressed with the cleanliness of that facility. I mean, it was spick and span, and that they are doing a great job in regard to that. So, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Mr. Westcott, anything you want to volunteer? Or?
Well, unfortunately, it's not likely that they'll ever need to go out of business. But they will need to make some serious improvements before very long.
Yeah.
And I know that we're going to have to address that.
Every year the safety aspect gets more and more amped up, and if they could redo some of that existing space to make it usable for inmate population, you could work with smaller groups, I think they told us. So something to be thinking about, and again, it's an interesting visit for any of you that want to call ahead and make arrangements to go through. So that's all I'm going to report tonight, because we've got a much more entertaining organization report. Mr. Steve Mallett from City Corporation is going to give us his biannual update. I think he's going to tell us that all of their construction is winding up.
Not
Did I
quite.
hear that wrong? Okay.
Not quite. Thank you, Mayor. This is, as he said, our semi-annual update. I was here in March and have some exciting stuff to report since then that has happened to us. And I'll start with obviously the most impressive one is the fact that we were awarded the best drinking water in North America. We went. Thank you. Several staff members. You see Larry Collins, Jonathan Shipley, who's our water treatment plant superintendent, myself, and a couple others were in Chicago for the annual AWWA conference, and there was a People's Choice Award and I guess a judged award. They had 3 judges they selected for one category, and then the People's Choice was judged by the participants and the attendees at the conference, and which we feel actually more proud of winning that one than we would have the other. But we were chosen out of 24 different waters that came from different regions across North America, including Canada and Puerto Rico. And again, we were very, very pleased to win that, very pleased to bring that back to the city of Russellville. So, and we also developed a new Citicorp logo. You may have seen each one of you at your desk, with the exception of Mr. Eaton, who already received his at our meeting a month ago. Just a small token of our appreciation, a little tumbler with our new logo on it. Very proud of that. This obviously is not an attempt to depart from what we've been in the past. We're very proud of what we've accomplished in our history with City Corporation and our relationship with you folks. This is just a rebranding, something a little simpler, a little easier to recognize on our vehicles and our shirts, and basically just a fresh look. So very proud of that as well. So some of the accomplishments over the past year, our budget year goes from July to June, so this coincides with our budget year. We appointed Chip Blanchard as a new board member that you folks approved back in January of this year. We revised all of our job descriptions for the city corporation staff that had been probably 20 years or better since they had been revised, and it became apparent fairly quickly that we were evaluating all of our employees based off of very dated information. So that's been accomplished during the year. As you folks are very familiar with, because you're a big part of that, we passed a bond issue and began implementation of the first phase of a multi-year program for water and wastewater improvements. And again, most of you were here for that campaign and are familiar with all of the projects that were associated with that. Along those lines, issued a bond in July of 2015, so we're just a little over a year into that, and the total amount of $49 million. 20 of it, which was dedicated to water improvements. We completed some ongoing water plant improvements. Obviously, you folks are also aware of the fact that we've replaced all of our water meters throughout our system. I'll have a few more words on that here in just a minute. We've got a few projects, as you can see, they're under construction, a tank, some backup generators, system improvements throughout our water distribution system. We've got some ponds at our water plant that the bank is actually shared with the Lake Dardanelle, so obviously we are looking to stabilize that to keep that from caving away and creating some issues for us and the Corps of Engineers. We're working with them to try to get them to pay 55% of that, so that could be a savings of about $300,000 on that project if and when that takes place. Just general overall water line replacements are in design, and we've got a couple other projects, as you can see, that probably deferred for another year or so. To date, we've spent $6.2 million, which is about 31% of the total amount of $20 million that we've spent to date. We've encumbered probably an additional $3 or $4 million on a couple of the projects that we've listed there. So we've encumbered about half probably at this point, again, being a little over a year into it. The bond language requires us to spend 85% of the proceeds within the first 3 years. So I don't see that as being an issue at this point. But obviously, things will probably slow down a little bit over the next couple of years, but we'll make sure that we hit that mark. And again, we have projects in the hopper to do that. We just need to move forward with them. Also had $20.5 million of that dedicated to wastewater improvements. Most of those were related to addressing the administrative order that we are currently under. The deadline of that, of which is 2022. We have a couple projects that have been complete. The work that was in and around the city mall that seemed to last forever has finally been completed. The manhole rehab, just basically a number of manholes that were rehabilitated, those two projects are complete. The O Street relocation in association with
with the development of O Street. We're closing that project out. Very, very pleased to report that through the effort of the mayor and some of his staff and our staff combined to receive a $1.7 million EDA grant to be used toward the I-40 Gravity Sewer South, and that's what we call it, but it's basically the project that will serve the new convention center, or will, one of the things that it will do is serve the new convention center. That was the justification used to apply for the grant, and I think we applied for $2 million and received 1.7. The total project, I think, is $4.2 million, so obviously that's almost half of the cost of that project, so that's a savings to the city and city corporation, and again, very much appreciative of the mayor and the work that his staff did getting that grant. Obviously, that will take care of any improvements that need to be made to the water and sewer system to serve the convention center off-site. So that'll all be taken care of through this project. I have a couple basin projects, and by basins I mean areas of the city that were surveyed and identified that are under construction. That's just line replacement. The work you see out in the middle of West Main, that's part of one of these projects. I think they're wrapping that portion up as we speak. So I think a few more days out in the middle of West Main, and they'll move on to some other areas. We're in the process of a large project out at our wastewater plant for sludge handling improvements. That's currently under construction. Then we have a couple other projects that are currently in design phase. To date, we've spent about $5 million, but again, we've encumbered probably at least that much more in basically the two basin projects that I spoke of. So we've encumbered, again, about half of the total amount that needs to be spent, again, within the first 3 years. And you may be wondering where the other $9 million came from. That was to refinance the debt we had on the books of $8.5 million, which was previously financed the wastewater plant improvements. So outside of this single debt issue, granted it is a large debt issuance, but that is the only debt that we have on our books at City Corporation. So we continued our energy efficiency efforts. We applied for rebate dollars through a program that Energy helped sponsor. It's called Clear Result, and we were very surprised and pleased to be awarded with about a $130,000 rebate check for just the equipment that we eliminated at the wastewater plant, just basically by asking. And so we received a check for $130,000 that we would have not received otherwise without asking for that. We also, a program that we were aware of was the lighting program. We retrofitted some of the lighting we had at one of our plants and received a $10,000 rebate check on that. And we're currently working on the other plant. It's a $70,000 lighting retrofit project, and we're going to receive $30,000 back through an incentive check from that. It's about a 2-year payback on all these projects, so it's a win-win. Not only do we receive money as reimbursement for the project, but within a couple years we'll be actually making money through our expense budget. Fully implemented the new water meters. As most of you are fully aware, we have new water meters with cellular transmission as far as how we read them now. We no longer go out and manually read the meters. They are EPA lead compliant. We were mandated in January of this year to have all of the lead meters removed from our system, so they're obviously lead compliant. Ultrasonic meter, they're guaranteed for 20 years versus the old meters were guaranteed for 10, and we have an improved accuracy on the low and high end of the flow spectrum. Our projected payback was 5.8 years. I'm pleased to report that we seem to be at or ahead of that schedule based on the numbers that we've seen. And once the project is paid off, we're expecting a financial benefit of about $500,000 a year just through decrease in expenses, obviously from not having to go out and read the meters. We have eliminated one of the positions in the meter reading department, obviously, so that counts toward that. And the other would be in the increased revenues from the more accurate meters as we move forward. The meters do also provide a web-based customer portal or an interactive software called Eye on Water. We've had a few folks sign up for that, and it provides the customer the ability to monitor their usage and set leak alerts. So if your meter's using water in the middle of the night, it'll actually send you a text message and let you know that you have some usage when you shouldn't otherwise be having usage. We've had, again, some people take advantage of that. And our customer service folks obviously use that when people call in. And we have reduced our unaccounted for water by approximately 4%. And that was a little bit higher than our target number of 3, so we're very pleased. And all that will do will help shorten our payback period of 5.8 years, maybe reduce that by a year or so. So here's a graph, and I know that's all over the place, but I'll just point out that the orange line was our unaccounted for water percentage in 2015, and you can see it varied anywhere from 10% to almost 20%, so it averaged right at 15%. So last year, our average unaccounted for water was right at 15%. And the reason that we have the whipsaw action with the graph is because with the manually read meters, we read them throughout the month, so we didn't really have a true 30-day reading to where we can compare it with the 30-day production at the water plant. The new meters allow us to accurately record the amount of water that was used from the 1st through the 30th and compare that directly with the water plant. So you'll see that once our meters were in place and we began utilizing that number, it immediately flattened out, and we've got a more consistent number that we're pleased to report is trending below 11%. And we were right at 15, so that's about a 4% reduction. So we'll either save that in water that we don't have to make or revenue that we will be receiving. We're trying to get that number below 10, which is where we historically have been. Our 28-year average is 11.5, so obviously we're below that, but would like to get it a little bit further. So again, we were shooting for 3%, and we've reduced it by 4 through the meters and some leak repairs that we made in our system. Here's a little picture of what you would see if you went online and signed up for our Ion Water software. It shows you the graph you see as a bar chart showing you that you have what your usage is on an hourly basis. You'll notice that at 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, it's showing some usage. So up in the left, it'll tell you that it's estimating that you have a 6 gallons per hour usage, and we're going to assume that's a leak unless you leave something running or have something that uses water on a continuous basis. But most of those should be 0. So again, you can set that to let you know that at any time you can set the threshold of what you consider to be a leak, and it'll let you know either by email or a text message. So again, that's available. You can go online at citycorporation.com, and it'll have instructions on how you sign up for that software. And again, you can download that to your phone and monitor it from your phone. And we've got a couple board members, and I'm going to tell you a quick story on General Harmon. He actually used that during the trial period when he was on vacation. He confirmed that his house was cleaned by turning it on and seeing exactly how much water was used during the time they were supposed to be there. So that was never thought about using it for that, but that's how detailed it is, and that's what you can use it for, among many other things, when you have this ability at your fingertips. So I thought that was a very important part of what we can provide, and especially since the rates have gone up to pay for all the improvements that I've mentioned. This gives the folks an opportunity to go in and monitor what their usage is, and if they see any issues, they can catch it and address it before it hits them in the pocketbook at the end of the month. Positive ending to the 2015-16 budget year. Our combined revenue was better than budgeted, about $312,000. Part of that is related to the water meters and the improved accuracy of the water meters. The combined expenses were over budget by $16,000. I believe that's the first time we've been over budget on our expense line since I've been there for 4 years. But I do want to point out that we did absorb an unbudgeted expense. We had to contract our sludge handling basically for the entire year, and that was a $600,000 unbudgeted expense that we were able to absorb and only come in at the end of the year over by $16,000. So we made some cuts in other places to try to absorb that, and I'm very proud of our staff for doing that. Other income we had was over budget by $47,000, so our total projected net income actually came in at $340,000 better than budget. So obviously, if we can continue that trend, that will allow us to do more capital work and have a less impact on the rates and how we move forward with the projects. And we renewed our contract with ConAgra. It was a 30-year contract that was started, I guess, back in the 70s or 80s, or whatever that comes back to. I think it was at the time when Morton Foods was here, and the city co-opted with them to put in a pretreatment facility, and we had to maintain management of that for 30 years. They could have gotten out of that contract, but they were so pleased with the relationship they've had with City Corporation and the city for those 30 years, they chose to continue that and renewed that contract with us. Revised it somewhat, obviously, from 30 years old for an additional 5-year term, so we were very pleased with that. Kind of wrap up with the major goals for the coming year. We are going to complete our standard specifications revisions. Obviously, we'll continue to work with folks, engineering and consultants, to make sure that we're online and current with our standard specifications. We will continue to focus on our unaccounted for water, primarily through leak repair. And we have begun a regional search for a future water source. We have contacted Tri-County and some other area utilities about the possibility of a shared or regional water source. We know that that is a long process. It took around 20 years from the time of conception to the time where we got the first drop of water out of Huckleberry. So we feel that we need to at least have a plan in place, because that day will come when we will need additional water source. And we are in the process of revising projections for the next phase of bonds. The first phase was projected at $40 million. The second phase is projected at around $35 million. We are set up to issue those bonds in 2018. The good news is the rate plan that is in place addresses that bond issuance. So there will be no need at this point, assuming everything stays the same with the projected cost and as long as we don't have any issues with our revenues, we will be able to absorb the cost of that bond issuance in 2018. But we are revising the projections because they're a couple years old now. We've got other things to consider, such as construction costs going up. We're seeing that that's getting a little more competitive now than what it has been, and those costs are going up a little. I know you folks are aware of the ordinance regarding street cuts and how that may impact if we wind up having to repave an entire street versus just portions of it. We'll have to figure out how that fits into some of these projects moving forward and visit with Public Works on, and again, how that will impact some of these. So we're just revising those projections so that when we come back next year with the next phase of bonds, we'll have truer numbers and be able to do as good a job with that round as we're currently doing with the round that we have. So in closing, our board, again, a couple members here, welcomes the opportunity to meet with you folks at any time to talk about anything that I've mentioned, or any other topic that you may have on your mind that you want to visit with. And again, we want to thank you folks for your support. Thanks to the residents of Russellville and surrounding areas for continuing to support us to provide, again, the best drinking water in North America and pretty good sewer services too. I can't leave those folks out. They'd be upset if I didn't mention both sides of our business. So, and with that, is there any questions that you have for me or perhaps one of the board members that we have here today?
Is this a Yeti?
No, it's Yeti-like. I'll say that. I want to make sure I stayed under the gift value for the board, so we had to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank y'all. Any other questions?
I'm proud of the water record. I'm proud.
Good
Thank
job. You bet. Good job there, Steve.
Yep. Thank you. We appreciate y'all's support.
You mentioned that grant award deal. We're going to have a ceremony. Do you know, or isn't it the 8th, Paladin?
Yeah.
September 8th over at your place at 1:30. That's kind of it's a pretty big deal, so anybody that can and would like to. It'd be nice to have a big picture with that big old cardboard check.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We'll make sure that we get the word out.
Your guys did a great job getting that. I mean, it was a real tight timeline and had to be fully engineered, I believe. And Lance and Taryn really went above and beyond, I thought, to get that done. So, thank you.
Yeah, we're going to
Thank
do
y'all.
nothing.
Anybody else for Mr. Mallett? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. If you think he was cool, our department report is Tanessa Vaughn going to talk about human resources development. So,
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is our current staffing. We're at 207 right now. That's for full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees. This year, we've hired and recruited 22 employees. Our turnover is at 19 year-to-date. Openings for the city, we have 3 for the police. That's effective on August the 22nd. They'll start accepting applications. The fire department is accepting applications today. We have 2 openings at Public Works, and there's 1 at the Parks Department. Year-to-date training includes a heat stress that was put on by the Department of Labor. We had a proper lifting by St. Mary's. They also came and did some health screenings for us. We've also had some training by the Valley Personnel Association that included some workers' comp training. And today we attended a training for the new laws regarding Fair Labor Standards Act that are going to be effective December the 1st. We have 5 employees that are attending Arkansas Tech this fall to continue their education through the scholarship program. And then just today, or this week, we had 34 employees that signed up for CPR training through the city that the fire department offered. I would like to say I did attend that training today this morning. It was put on by Brad Barnhouse. It was excellent training. It was very thorough. We had a lot of employees that gave feedback regarding the training. We had some police officers there. We had some people from the parks, from Public Works. So it was all over the city that provided this training to us, and it was really good. It was first aid along with the CPR, so it was very informative and very well put on by Brad. In June, we did a weight loss challenge here at the city for our wellness program. We had a 6-week competition, and we had several employees that participated in this event. The employees paid $25 to participate, and then they would weigh in every week. And then we had a winner at the end of the 6-week program. It was David Kendrick. He works for Public Works. It was a really good program.
That's good.
Some of the upcoming things that we're going to be doing in the fall is the enrollment for the health benefits. That will be real important. That will be a big undertaking. And then another thing that we have in the works right now, and Julie is going to be helping with that, is a potluck here at City Hall. And we'll be inviting all the departments here for that, and just a good time to get the employees together and just have a luncheon. And it will all be sponsored by the employees here. That concludes my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Is the city council invited to that too?
Yes, they will be.
Now, did you cut off about 20 slides? Because I was just kidding about you only have 2 minutes, so.
No, I took your direction and tried to make it as short as I could, Mayor.
Really good. Anybody got any questions for Ms. Vaughn?
Good report. Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, that'll bring us down to our committee reports. For the finance, we don't really have a chairman.
Won't you go ahead and handle it, Mayor?
If you don't care, then Mr. Wiley, I'll run down that list. We have 6 appropriations that were passed at last week's meeting, and we have 2 more tonight. They were all passed and they're recommended in the form of a motion, but you want to handle those all at one time?
Can we
one at a time?
Mayor, can we handle those at all at one time, because we passed all of them?
That'd be fine with me, if nobody objects. All right, items 1 through 6. If you have a question about any of these appropriations, we can go back and do it, but 1 through 6 from Tuesday night and 2 and 5 from tonight were all recommended in the form of a motion.
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just on the appropriations for number 3 and 4, that's $4 million, 2 for the Central Fire Station and 2 for the Aquatic Center.
Yes, sir.
I assume that the economic development funds are available for that
Yes.
kind of capital outlay?
We have the money, it's just, I don't have a way to spend it.
I understand. Okay,
Yep.
that's all I had.
And those deals, I mean, especially right now in the Aquatic Center, it's close to $500,000 every time we have to pay it. They're making good progress, but it's the expensive part of the progress.
Yeah, with that rain.
It could be fun to be out there tomorrow if you're out and about. They're going to have delivery of the arches, the main part of the structure at the Aquatic Center. Probably be even more fun Monday or Tuesday. They should have a crane out there and start standing them up. So, all right. So the motion is 1 through 6 from last week, 2 and 5 from this week. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. On tonight's finance agenda, there was item 1 is consideration of a resolution to accept the bid from Clayco Construction for the O Street project. That came in 600 and odd thousand under the engineer's estimate, I think. And that's recommended in the form of a motion. So, any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
One question, Mr. Jones, if I may, Mayor. When is that project supposed to start now, following the approval of the bid?
Good question.
Well, after y'all, vote to accept the low bid, we'll issue notice of award. It'll take, approximately 2 weeks for the contract.
Get his bonds together, and we'll get the contract put together at that point and get it executed. So I'm guessing 3 to 4 weeks.
Good. Thank you.
I had lunch with a friend today, and we actually ran into the guy that won the bid on that. He is anxious and excited to get started and get a lot of work done before winter sets in. Item 3, consideration of a resolution relating to acceptance of a bid for the airport department. To authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute that agreement. That is for the taxiway extension. The bid amount on that was $307,711. There's all kinds of fees that go with that, but it's basically budget neutral to the city. We got a lot of help from the FAA, and they don't like to say it, but I think we got good support from legislators. This time, 6 months ago, we didn't think we were going to qualify for that. Mr. Frazier worked real hard with the FAA and convinced them that it's a worthy project. And so the Finance Committee recommended that tonight, and that
Mayor?
is in the form of a motion.
We'll have an appropriation next month.
Yeah.
On this.
But
Even
today
if
is the
it's a grant,
contract.
we still have to pay up front and then get our money back.
How long will it take to get that money back?
Generally, it takes me about 2 weeks, once we write a check. We write a check, I have to get the check canceled back, and then I can draw the money.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item 4, we've done this for a few years now, asking for your approval to auction off some surplus city property by internet. A few old vehicles and some other stuff. Jerry's got a list if you want particulars, but that's recommended in the form of a motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Stuber, I believe you have an item for us?
Yes, Mayor, the Personnel Committee did meet, and we voted to approve changing companies for the employee deferred compensation plan. And I would offer that, that's a resolution, and I would offer that for approval.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion on that?
That's good.
It's recommended by committee. Yeah, recommended by committee, so you heard the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Anything else for us, Mr. Stuber?
That's it.
All right. That'll bring us to unfinished old business, signage regarding cigarettes and billboards. Mr. Eaton?
Yes,
You wanna-
Mr. Mayor and council and others, I've been in communication with Autumn Hurst with CSI, who's the lady that came and gave us the presentation a month or so ago. She has an advertising survey that she has scheduled to present in the Pope County schools that will begin in September as a step for consideration with our youth and their thoughts or impacts in regard to this. And it's more than just cigarettes. It's about a number of different things in the survey. So I would recommend that we keep this on our schedule, get the feedback from the survey that takes place and any other recommendations that might come out of that. So that's where we are at this point.
Very well. Any other discussion on that? You're not looking for a motion at this time?
No.
Very good. That'll bring us to new business 1, consideration of a resolution granting a special use permit to operate a convenience store with fuel sales for property located on South Arkansas Avenue.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I believe I heard motion, Mr. Wiley, and second.
Mr. Stuber?
I think it was Mr. Stuber that got that one in there.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You want to call the roll on it, or no need on the resolution?
No.
That'll bring us to new business 2. This is an ordinance, amending ordinance number 1998, which set up the airport department.
Leave that to Mr. Westcott.
Mr. Westcott, you want to make a motion on that, or?
It's very, very straightforward. We just want to go quarterly instead of.
Okay, you guys spin the rules and read by title only, with short explanation.
Yeah. What they're wanting to do is meet every 3 months because, big stuff just doesn't happen that quickly, and we think it'll help them with getting a quorum regularly.
I do make a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only with a short explanation.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to suspend the rules.
That's his baby, so let him do it.
You want to call the roll on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stuber?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. Holman?
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Mr. Smith.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 1988, which set up the airport department and the airport commission to allow the airport commission to set their own regular meeting dates, locations, and times for their purposes. This ordinance passed would allow the airport commission to organize their schedule each year however they see fit.
Motion to adopt.
Oh,
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Westcott. We have a motion to adopt from Mr. Westcott. A second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Harris. Is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stuber?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. Holman?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. That'll bring us to new business 3. This is a discussion of a disposition of city property at 917 West Second Place. Mr. Eaton?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
You brought that in.
Thank you very much. This is something that I mentioned the other evening at our agenda prep meeting, and it was in response to, I guess, a plea or request by those who are involved with Habitat for Humanity. They have been looking for additional property in which to build another home, and in response to that, I asked Mr. Smith, city attorney, if we had possibly had any other property or any property in the city that might fit something of this nature, and he did make a search through his records and the city's records and came up with this particular piece of property. As I understand it, the board of directors for Habitat of Humanity have looked at this, and they all find it suitable, and it would be prudent, I think, if the city can make this land gift or whatever method that we must go through to do this very worthwhile project in our city.
Can we pass
Mr.
that
Smith.
tonight, Mayor, or not? We gotta wait till he draws up some paper?
I think we better hear from Mr. Smith. Any tripwires or pitfalls?
Well, there's no, I don't have the resolution tonight, but there's a couple of things I think that should be done. One, I'd like to talk to Joel Vaughn about appraising it, see what the value is, because we have to receive some type of adequate consideration. Of course, that can be something else besides money, and if it goes to the public benefit in some way, which that's what the council sees, that could be something that can be incorporated in that resolution. So,
How much money you have to make it legal, $5 or $10?
Well, I put in the cost of what it is in here, which is the city has expended over $6,000. I'd like to talk to Mr. Vaughn just to see what the value is, and from there, I can probably give you a number that would be comfortable so that the city receiving the monetary compensation plus declaring there's a public benefit to doing this for the city, such as maybe combating crime or blight or any type of extended value that's received. I think that could be incorporated, that's the other consideration that makes it adequate for such a sale, transfer, or conveyance.
I would make a recommendation that we proceed with this and do what we can in regard to this.
I second that.
I have a question, Mr. Smith. Within the new business in our packet, there is, it shows the lien against the property dated to March 9th, 2005, but the lien doesn't necessarily indicate clear title to the city, is that correct?
Right, that was a document, I grabbed that one just because it was a one-page and it had the value. There is a commissioner's deed, and I can be happy to email it to you later. It's a little longer than this, I just grabbed something that'd be short and sweet to show you the value of what the city's put in it, but there is a commissioner's deed. I have that, and it has conveyed property in the city's name, and it is currently on the county assessor's card showing the city is owner of that property, and the property is exempt from taxes as per the state law for the city to pay it. So, but I have that if I can get it to you.
I'm satisfied with your response, thank you.
There's nothing that the city's gonna do with that property right there. It's too small.
It's roughly .21 acres from the aerial photo, and Public Works people kind of give an estimate based off the legal they used to show where the property is in context with the city.
Does that property, lack of words, butt up to the skate park, or is there a space
No.
between it?
No.
There's a space between it?
No,
But it
there
goes
is
from
a
street to street.
Christian church and then one or two other homes.
So we don't have any adjoining property that we currently use?
No, it's just a kind of an island as far as we're concerned, and we're receiving no tax benefit in the city from it. No one is really receiving any benefit from having that. So some very worthy and able person, I think, should be able to
be a recipient on that.
I agree.
We need a motion to adjourn?
Just,
Are we
do you
through?
need anything on the,
Better answer than that.
do you need anything from council on the appraisal, or
Well, I
at this
think,
point, just take?
well, did they vote on the recommendation to proceed?
We did not yet.
I think that would, if it's,
Yeah.
that's done, then that's basically
what?
justifies me doing the other stuff with Mr. Vaughn.
Mayor, we
Okay.
can't hear him down here. You don't talk into his mic.
We, let's see, Mr. Eaton, what was your motion? Again,
Proceed
That
with
we
it.
continue to pursue what we need to do to
Okay.
get this into a position where we can transfer ownership.
all right, and we had a second,
Me.
okay.
Can I make a recommendation? You know, winter's gonna be here pretty soon, and as I understand it, Habitat Humanity would probably like to move quickly. So if perchance we got our ducks in a row in time, to support a special call meeting to
Okay, we'll put a note down on that.
Good point.
Good.
Can you do
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
No, we
Nope.
got to vote.
Yeah, all in favor of the motion to have
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Smith pursue,
Okay.
transfer this property, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
Now we
Now,
adjourn.
you had another motion there,
Motion
Mr.
to
Wiley?
adjourn.
Thank you. We're done.